Aksidente ko, aksidente. Multi-multi malabot, hindi ka pungkong siguro sa baka, aksidente. Masa ka na 3,000? Kana 3,000, kuan naman na. Inginip.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to HEdConnect 7, Part 1. This is the Higher Education Connect 7 or 7th session. And this is sponsored by the Cebu Normal University College of Teacher Education BTL Ed program. Our session for today is themed Adapting Food Technology and Innovation in the New Normal. Part 2 of HEdConnect 7 will be next Friday, November 13, 2020, and it will be sponsored by the CTE BPED program. So I am Mr. Kim Francis Rodriguez, and I will be your moderator for today. At this point, let us all pause for a moment's silence for the opening prayer and the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. Both numbers will be led by the Cebu Normal University Chorale virtually under the baton of Professor Darlene Yap.
And my strength, you guide me and embrace me with your love. You gave your life to save me from sins, Jesus, my Savior, my Lord. I will proclaim that you are my God, the God of mercy and the giver of life. I will submit my life to you, to serve you with all of my heart. You are my hope and my strength. You guide me and embrace me with your love. You gave your life to save me from sins, Jesus, my Savior, my Lord. Fight each day to learn how to love. I am your servant and you are my King. I offer to you my heart and my mind. Use me, Lord Jesus, my God. You are my hope and my strength. You guide me and embrace me with your love. You gave your life to save me from sins, Jesus, my Savior, my Lord. Jesus, my Savior, my Lord. Bayang magiliw, persang silanganan, alab ng puso, sa lilig mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuwid ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong buhaw, may ilagang tulad, tawid sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng wakawat mo'y tagumpay na nangihingi. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa na halalan, malati pagsita, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming
All right, so good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Before we proceed, let me tell you of the house rules very quickly. Let me tell you of the house rules that we need to remember for the duration of this HEdConnect session. Can I request your Max to share the screen, please? All right, here. So these are the things that we need to remember. Everybody is encouraged to rename your Zoom name according to this format. Name _ your institution so that we know where you're coming from. Also, please turn off your microphone for the entire session. The chat box may be used though to communicate with everybody else in this session. You can also use the chat box later to post your questions. You may or you may not turn on your video while the session is going on, but during the picture taking later on, I will be encouraging you to open your video, of course, for us to see your beautiful and handsome faces. And during the open forum, I will be reading your questions, so kindly just make sure to indicate the name of the speaker you want to address your question to. All right, so I think we are all set. At this point, let us now listen to the hardworking Dean of the College of Teacher Education to give us the opening remarks as well as the rationale for this HEdConnect session. Friends, please welcome with a virtual applause, Dr. Ethel L. Abba.
Thank you, Sir Kim Rodriguez. Greetings to our, with high respect to our University President, Dr. Filomena T. Dayagbiel, Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Daisy R. Palumpon, to the Vice President for Administration, Dr. Floriza N. Laplap, to our Vice President for Research, Extension, led by Dr. Ibanez, the Program Chair, the Program Chairs and Area Coordinators of the College of Teacher Education, colleagues, my colleagues in the College of Teacher Ed, participants to this webinar, the theme of which is Adapting Food, Technology, and Innovation in the New Normal. Good morning. Productive and peaceful, happy life can start with good food and healthy mindset. Today, more than ever, people have become conscious of health sustainability and well-being of each one. The Bachelor of Technology and Livelihood Education of Cebu Normal University College of Teacher Education and its team of professors led by its program chair, Dr. Wilson Ibanez, have exercised their innovativeness through this webinar, which anchors on the aforementioned outcomes. In this time of pandemic, when activities are dramatically shifted to online, certainly there were challenges encountered, especially in the academe. One of these is the food technology. How is this actualized based on the modified plan? As we all know from authorities that food technology is the application of food science to the selection, preservation, processing, packaging, distribution, and the use of safe food. Obviously, there are essential elements that need to be considered before preparing and partaking a meal. Academic institutions in this time of pandemic desire to inculcate in the students the adoption or the adaptation of food technology that is suitable, sustainable, secure, and safe. Once actualized, this becomes a paramount innovation. Further, educators are ascertained that through this, our students somehow can directly or indirectly contribute to nation building. Let's remember, healthy citizenry makes a progressive society. This advocacy is not a one-man show, but a team action. According to David M. Tino, the new world will be a collaboration of people who have the goal to make the food supply safer and working together to get better practices. Ladies and gentlemen, may this webinar on adapting food technology and innovation in the new normal ushers us all towards becoming healthy and productive civil citizens and servants. Thank you and good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ethel L. Abao, for giving us the very warm welcome and for laying the rationale behind our session today. Now, at this point, our speakers will, of course, be properly introduced by Miss Dimna Pacifico, a faculty member of the Integrated Laboratory School. Here she is.
Good morning. Our first speaker, Mrs. Charess E. Goles. She is currently teaching in Cebu Normal University, and she is also a trainer's methodology level 1 holder. She is currently pursuing her doctorate degree in philosophy at Cebu Technological University main campus. She has registered utility model entitled Calm Pace Enriched with Seaweed for Cake Decor, and awarded as first place in CNU Research Festival on Innovations in Research 2019. She has presented paper and awarded as Best Abstract during the 3rd National Student Research Conference, and also Session Best Paper during the International Conference on Research in Engineering and Technology. She has conducted numerous reviews for licensed professional teachers, specifically major subjects in technology and livelihood education. She has conducted numerous training for NC2 bread and pastry production and cookery. This morning, she will tackle about the food preservation, guide to food safety, and food waste reduction. Our second speaker, Mrs. Jannet T. Bondad. She is a college instructor in technology and livelihood education of Cebu Normal University, and with 12 years of experience working with junior and senior high school students and teaching technical vocational education major in foods. She is a trainer's methodology level 1 holder with NC2 certificate. The following are Food and Beverage Services NC2, Cookery NC2, Bread and Pastry Production NC2. She was awarded as Champion Coach in Experimental and Chicken Cookery Division and Regional level. She was a resource speaker during the immersion benchmarking exercise for Indonesian participants under the Philippine-Indonesian Bilateral Cooperation in Education. She was also Institute Trainer in Cookery Institute, Bread and Pastry Production Institute. Today, she will also tackle about Food Preservation Guide to Food Safety and Food Waste Reduction. Our third speaker, Dr. Renissa Quiñones, is a full-fledged professor and University Production Director Designate at Cebu Technological University. She obtained her Doctor of Philosophy in Technology Management and Master of Arts in Vocational Education from Cebu State College of Science and Technology. She has more than 30 registered utility models and other intellectual property rights under IPOFIL. She has presented papers in 30 scientific research conferences and published research paper in peer-reviewed journals. She conducted over 50 research-based extension activities for the last 5 years, a training expert and community developer. Her research interests include food product development and innovation, university technology transfer, food waste upgrading, and gender studies. Today, she will share her expertise on food innovation and technology transfer.
All right, so thank you very much, Miss Dimna Pacifico. Without much ado, am I heard?
Yes,
Am I still
we can
online?
hear you. We can hear you, Sir Kim.
Yes, sir.
Just give me a... All right. I'm very sorry. My internet connectivity is, yeah. All right. Well, that's really the drawback of this new platform. Well, anyway, the show must go on. So once again, thank you very much, Miss Dimna Pacifico, for properly introducing our speakers for this morning session. Without much ado,
Wala.
And there I was already out reading. Anyway, without much ado, I'll turn you over now. I'll turn you over now to our first speaker to talk about food safety and food preservation. Friends, please welcome Mrs. Charess Goles.
Thank you for that, Sir Kim, and this Gymna Pacifico. My high respect to our ever dynamic Dean of the College of Teacher Education, Dr. Ethel L. Abao, Cebu Normal University. To my very supportive chair of the Bachelor of Technology and Livelihood Education, Dr. Wilson T. Ibanez. To our highly esteemed guest speaker for this morning from Cebu Technological University, Dr. Renissa S. Quiñones. To my colleagues, friends in the teaching profession, students, good morning. A warm morning to each and every one. Let me start my presentation by sharing to you one of the philosophies of home economics, and that is to be able to utilize the available resources that we have at home. These days, we have been experiencing a lot. This pandemic has indeed given us a lot of changes, and with such, it has definitely tested our homemaking skills. I think everybody would agree. Okay, with this, it has indeed tested that we were able to utilize our available resources. Shall we say online selling? It has been very, very popular with food innovations. A lot of people are doing such without them knowing it. Plantitos and plantitas are really everywhere. Even my neighbors now have really nice plants at home. Home interior designing. We try to redecorate our homes, beautifying our homes, and everything that we do. Everything talk about food innovation and therefore innovation. And thus I could say that everybody has been home economists. I hope everybody would agree. But this morning, I would want to focus on one of the very important aspects of home economics, and that talks about foods, or shall we say cooking. I know everybody loves to eat, everybody loves foods, and I know everybody can cook, but not everyone knows well how to cook. And when we talk about cooking, that already involves how do we prepare these foods, and simply, which is of the priority, is how do we prepare these foods safely for us and for our family. Okay, so without much further ado, I'll be talking mostly about the food safety, and then followed by what we call as the food preservation. Okay, and basically, food preservation actually comes from the word food technology. So let us define first on what is really that food technology. So food technology, basically, it is a science. A science because it involves techniques, principles that are involved in the processing, of course, and how do we preserve these food substances. So that involves the cooking, how do we cook these foods. So that's a science. It is also a development because we have to do new methods, even new systems on how to keep these products safe and even resistant to these natural harm. Later on, I'll be discussing more about what are these natural harms that I am talking about. Definitely, it is an economic activity. Food technology as an economic activity because of all of our things that we have to cook, how do we distribute them efficiently? How do we market them easily? And when we talk about distribution and marketing, that also involves how do we enhance the flavor of the foods that we are making. And basically about the toxin reduction, okay? So basically, food technology as a science, also a development, and basically as what we are doing nowadays, I think almost all, that also involves an economic activity. But before we proceed with food technology, let us thus therefore talk about the nature of food itself. everybody agrees that all food comes from living tissues, right? Okay, that involves the stems, from the roots, from the fruit, the seeds, leaves, and the flowers. All of these come from living tissues. And because of its organic origin, we all know that these foods can never remain edible for a longer time. Because of its natural state, basically it spoils. And so, some would ask, what is the answer then of keeping these living tissues for a longer time? And I think everybody would agree that talks about food preservation. Okay. Food in a natural state actually is classified into three. We have the perishable foods, semi-perishable foods, and the non-perishable foods. They are classified according to these three, and let us see in what sense are they classified. Now, when we talk about perishable foods, these are foods that deteriorate and they spoil easily. Very good examples, we have the meat, fish, milk, poultry, ripe and succulent fruits, and leafy vegetables. So, in other words, when these foods are being exposed into an ordinary temperature, or shall we say a room temperature, these foods would definitely spoil after a few hours. These semi-perishable foods as well, these foods are the lesser juicy one than the perishable foods. These can maintain their fine eating quality, however, only for a limited period of time. We have eggs, garlic, onions, ginger, kamote, and other similar root crops. Okay, so compared to the perishable ones, in this case, when they are exposed to room temperatures, most likely they would stand for a few days compared to the perishable ones where it would last for a few hours only. And when we talk of the non-perishable foods, these are foods that can maintain their fine eating quality and with an unlimited period of time. We have the rice, dried legumes, matured beans, corn, and nuts. Okay. So, what have you noticed with these classification from the perishable foods, going to the semi-perishable foods to the non-perishable foods? I hope everybody can see it because most of them will talk about the keeping quality of food, and that is they are dependent on its water content. Going back to these perishable foods, their water content basically is more of a higher water content compared with the semi-perishable ones in which they are less juicy and compared to the non-perishable ones in which there are more or less no water content. So in other words, microbial spoilage or the food spoilage would take place, okay, if the foods have this lower water content, wherein they can maintain their shelf life and edibility without any kind of food preservation for a long time. So no water, okay, that means longer shelf life, okay, they can maintain and they can be edible for quite a long time. While foods with high water content, they are the ones that spoil easily. Okay, so talking about the water content. Okay, this time, so after we have figured out this water content, let us talk more about what we call as the microbial spoilage, or shall we say, food deterioration and spoilage. When do these foods deteriorate? When do these foods naturally spoil? Okay, now basically there are two distinct processes that are involved when we talk about food deterioration and spoilage, and that is autolysis and microbial spoilage. Autolysis. Autolysis refers to the enzymatic activity of cells in food. So basically, foods has its own enzymes, and these enzymes activate as well. However, most likely within the limited amount of enzyme activity, this autolysis can still be proven to be beneficial. In what sense? That is when they actually ripen the fruits. And discoloration of fruits, wherein that indicates as well if the food or the fruits can already be eaten from green to yellow as for mangoes or for bananas, and then also for the tenderizing of meat. However, autolysis is detrimental in most cases. Why? because as long as the enzymatic activity takes place, there would basically be rotting of these fruits, deteriorating of food, and even the fish spoilage. Because, as they say, autolysis refers to the self-destruction of foods caused by the enzymes itself. It is even used to describe the breakdown of cells caused by the enzymes present within the food itself. So another example is more of the oxidative process or the oxidation, like the browning of these apples or even potatoes. And for the vegetables, we have the eggplant. So once the fruit, this apple has been exposed already, once you peel it off, basically it turns to brown. We call it browning. Therefore, the enzyme activity of these fruits have been very fast because it's already been exposed. Okay. So autolysis, so during autolysis, cells self-digest. That's why it's what they call as self-destruction of food, wherein fluids leak out, producing some of the leakage of decomposition. So from the picture, you can see a bell pepper, a red bell pepper, wherein when it starts to deteriorate, there are fluids coming out and it looks like that. So wherein the cells slowly already been decomposed. Now let's talk about microbial spoilage from the microbes. Microbial spoilage refers to the damage to food that is caused by microorganisms. How do we know that this has been exposed to these microorganisms? The signs would be, we have the change in color, change in odor, there's change in texture, even the accumulation of gas or foam, and the accumulation of liquid. Looking at the pictures, so that those things indicate that there's already the microbial spoilage. And in fact, microbial spoilage is faster than autolysis. Microbial spoilage consists of, we have the bacteria, yeasts, molds. Okay, they are one responsible for the major spoilage of food. Now let's talk about these one by one. Bacteria. Bacteria are microscopic, single-celled plants that can be of spherical, cocci, rod-like or bacilli, and even spira or spirilla. But some of these bacteria actually, they even have desirable effects on the flavor of food. And I think we are very much familiar in terms of lactic acid fermentation, wherein these bacteria can help, just like the products of yogurt, buttermilk, which is mostly used in baking, or sour milk, and even the pickles. So they are the ones. However, also, these bacteria are also detrimental in our health. So we have to understand, as part of the food safety, where these bacteria grow best. Okay, I want you to remember the words, or the word phaton, which represents food, acid, temperature, time, oxygen, and moisture. Okay, what does this mean? Basically, it means that this bacteria has its breeding ground, and number one would be the food. Bacteria really love to stay in food because they can get the nutrients that are present in it. They can also be very good when it comes to acid and even the temperature, wherein later I'll be discussing more about this certain temperature. Time. Once the food is again exposed, more of the time, then thus bacteria would grow best. Oxygen, okay, with the presence of the oxygen, and of course the moisture, wherein you were able to discuss it at first. Now let's talk about temperature. In food safety, there is actually a very common acronym that is TDC, or basically known as the temperature danger zone. So what does this mean? So looking at the picture, it actually shows a thermometer, right? I want you to focus on the red sign, which indicates temperature danger zone from 5 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. What does this mean? Basically, it explains that when food is exposed within this temperature, bacteria grow quickly. While when foods are exposed below the 5 degrees Celsius, wherein it is around 0 degrees Celsius, it is the cold food zone wherein it is actually in the refrigerator. While below the 0 degrees Celsius, which is like the negative 10 degrees Celsius, wherein it is a frozen food zone or in the freezer, in this case, bacteria don't grow. But bacteria never die at this stage. It's just they don't grow. If the food in itself has the bacteria in it and you are to freeze it, basically it stays there, but it doesn't grow. However, above the 60 degrees Celsius, shall we say the 100 degrees Celsius, hot food zone, in this case, bacteria are destroyed. So when we talk about the hot food zone, so basically we cook this food. That is one way on how we prevent these bacteria or bacterial decomposition to food. Now, talking about bacteria, allow me to at least talk about some of the common bacteria. Okay, the first one is the Clostridium botulinum. Clostridium botulinum is actually a very deadly bacteria because if one in person is infected with this somehow, it would mean death. Now, how do we transmit them? Basically from home canned and rarely improperly prepared commercially canned foods. A person who has this would have double vision, speech difficulties, inability to swallow, and even respiratory paralysis. Now, what do you mean by this? Once, this is good for everyone, especially to the mothers, whenever we buy canned goods, we have to double check, as part of the food safety, we have to double check whether there is the bulging of cans. Because once there is already the indication of the bulging of cans, meaning there is already the present Clostridium botulinum in it. Okay? Another is, we have to be also very careful when choosing cans, especially those that are dented ones. Why? Because once, whether it's a mechanical cause, whether maybe some people have dropped it, but once the can has already been dented, of course, it's already been distorted, and there's a possibility that there could be small holes wherein the bacteria could get in because has already been distorted. So we have to be very careful. In fact, there is the saying that when you are in doubt, you have to throw it out. When you are in doubt that, okay, this can may look some about bulging. So if you are in doubt of that one, so better throw it out rather than compromise. So to prevent such, we need to avoid, of course, bulging cans. And when we buy some green beans in cans, so we have to boil them for 10 minutes as well. Another bacteria is the Clostridium perfringens, sometimes referred to as the cafeteria germ. So why cafeteria? It is because most people who are infected by this bacteria actually got it from a buffet or steam tables. Buffet, why? It is because in this time where foods have been exposed at room temperature for quite a longer time. Okay. Symptoms would include diarrhea, gas pains beginning 6 and 24 hours after ingestion, and lasting approximately 24 hours. So how do we prevent this kind of bacteria? So basically, we have to keep food hot. In other words, when this food is intended for being hot, then we have to keep them hot. And when we talk about hot, that is 140 degrees Fahrenheit or the 60 degrees Celsius. And we have to keep the food cold, which is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And when we talk about leftovers, especially that at homes, we sometimes can never prevent that we have leftovers, make sure that it is reheated at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit before serving. That is to prevent these kinds of bacteria. And of course, when we choose vegetables, we have to wash them properly. Wash all the soil from these vegetables. Another bacteria is the Escherichia coli or the E. coli. Okay, we usually got this from undercooked hamburgers, even undercooked ground poultry or even ground meats. So a person who would experience E. coli would have abdominal cramps, watery diarrhea, vomiting, and we also have the serious complications like there's already blood, Okay, bloody diarrhea, severe abdominal cramps. It usually appears within 3 to 9 days after ingestion, and duration will be 2 to 9 days. That is if no complication. So how do we prevent? Simple. Avoid undercooked hamburgers. Okay, when we talk of ground meats, they have to be cooked 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Basically, wash all fruits and vegetables before eating. Another bacteria that is very common to us is the salmonella. The salmonella, this can be taken from raw or undercooked food such as the eggs, poultry and pasteurized milk or other dairy products. And cross-contamination by uncooked foods. What do you mean by cross-contamination? Cross-contamination happens when the raw foods have also been exposed to the cooked foods. So just like when we use chopping boards, sometimes at home because of time constraints, we just chop all of the ingredients at one chopping board, which is actually a very big no-no, because we need to, we should not cross-contaminate, we should not mix these cooked foods to these uncooked foods. Just like if in case you only have that one chopping board, it should have been better when you cut these vegetables, make sure to wash them before you cut these meats or vice versa. Wash them thoroughly. Salmonella has the symptoms like headaches, abdominal pain, diarrhea, fever, and nausea. Onset, that is 6 to 48 hours, and duration is 1 to 8 days. How do we prevent salmonella? Basically, avoid cross-contamination of raw and cooked foods. Do not eat raw eggs as much as possible. Cook ground beef to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, especially about this ground, not only for the beef, but for all the ground meats. Because as you know, ground meats, we never know whether which part of the pork is this. Mostly, it's already a mix of other parts of pork. And basic, keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. Another is the Shigella. Shigella can be transmitted basically from food handlers. So food handlers, usually if your moms are the one cooking for you, so moms, we should always be very careful when we handle these foods. And especially when we prepare cold salads, as I think I have mentioned already, that this bacteria will never die in cold places, but they still remain. Okay. So symptoms would include severe diarrhea, nausea, headaches, chills, dehydration. Onset is 1 day to a week. So how do we prevent? Food handlers must have what we call as the good hygiene. We must always practice to wash our hands regularly. Okay, and there should be sanitary food preparation. That's why we always follow as the clean as you do. Before, or in CNU, we say clean as you go. That's good for the cafeterias when they put their utensils after they eat. But in cooking, we have to do clean as you do. So while doing it, if you think there are garbage or say the peels of fruits, peels of these vegetables, we have to throw them right away after we're done. Okay. Always wash hands in hot soapy water after going to the bathroom and before preparing or eating food. That is why most of hotels and even some of these restaurants, the ones at the places where they prepare food, actually they have this hot and cold faucet. That is basically for them to wash their hands with hot soapy water, since they are food handlers as well. Another is the Staphylococcus aureus. They are basically again transmitted by infected food handlers. So that means these food handlers have already been infected, in which it would transmit to other people as well. Symptoms would include vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and then onset is 1/2 to 8 hours, duration is 1 to 2 days. So basically, good hygiene of the food handlers. And again, always remember, okay, keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. Okay, to sum up, prevention of foodborne illnesses. How do we prevent them? Basically, cleanliness. Okay, especially nowadays that most people are, basically we're staying at homes, thus we would want to cook many different kinds of foods that we have not cooked yet. We would want to create a happy family meals for our family, of course. Okay, so we have to always remember cleanliness. Cleanliness in our working area, we clean as we do, okay? Because that's not only for us, but also for our family. Prevent cross-contamination. I have already mentioned this one. So you have to be very keen on the contamination of these raw foods and cooked foods. Wearing of gloves for food workers who have even small cuts in their hands, because it's not only for food workers, also for the family. We have to refrain from cooking when we have wounds already, because of course those are the breeding ground for pathogens as well. Food must be covered and stored properly. So just like if you have leftovers, okay, so basically before you put them in refrigerators, make sure you have a proper storage wherein it is covered properly. Okay, not only that it's good for the food, but also for the refrigerator, since the smell would not be inside the refrigerator as well. Water from unknown sources should not be used for cooking. So again, if you are in doubt, please do not use it. Leftovers should always be refrigerated as soon as the meal is finished and covered when it is cold. Okay, leftovers, so please put them or store them not in a room temperature for a longer time, but it could be in a refrigerator. Okay, frozen food should either be cooked from the frozen state or be thawed in the refrigerator. Okay, normally, what we have been learning is that when we thaw foods or frozen foods like the chicken, we normally put them under a running water. But actually, for sanitary reasons, it should be either you cook them in a frozen state, which is of course, maybe the cooking duration is 50% more, or you could thaw them in the refrigerator a day before you intend to cook them. Okay, so that is one way to prevent the multiplication or the multiplication of the bacteria. Packages and jars should be properly sealed. Okay, just like nowadays, a lot of people are doing tinapa, how do I say this, the Spanish sardines, the online selling. Make sure that your jars have been sterilized and then they are properly sealed to prevent any complications. Cans should not bulge. Another is the yeast. So we're done with the bacteria, so let's talk about yeasts. Yeasts are aerobic, unicellular plants, and they may be useful or harmful in foods. In what sense can they be useful? I think everybody knows when we make breads, we need this yeast. Okay, vinegars, and even wine. But in some cases, it can also make food age and ferment faster. That makes the spoilage in milk and even for bread. So we have to be very careful as well. Okay. Most sugar-containing foods, okay, the sugar-containing foods are those susceptible to spoilage by yeast. That is why if you, for example, store these fruit juices at room temperature, after a few hours, you would say, oh, the smell is different from the first, no? From the first it was taken. Basically, because of the yeast. Fruits and fruit juices are more susceptible to yeast spoilage. And how do we kill them? How do we destroy them? By the boiling temperature. Okay. How do we know that it's in a boiling temperature? Basically, when bubbles appear, big bubbles appear, and then most likely that's 165 degrees Celsius Fahrenheit. Molds. So we're done with bacteria. We're done with yeast. Let's talk about molds. Molds, they are multicellular filamentous fungi. They have this fuzzy or cottony appearance. So looking at the picture, so mostly it's more on the whitish thing with dots or blackish colors. So it's about the molds. Molds are somehow important also in other processes for the soy sauce, even for the bread and cheese. However, they're also detrimental to food. So this Aspergillus flammus, they actually grow on cereal grains. They produce a toxin, which is called aflatoxin. And this aflatoxin would definitely cause illness and death in animals. So the molds are light, very resistant to drying, and they easily spread through the air and contaminate any food. So they may be white, dark, or various colors. So when food has these molds, make sure to throw them out. And if in case you would notice that some parts of the bread, for example, the small parts only have these molds, please do not utilize all or thinking about cutting the part where it has molds, because basically that's very, very dangerous to your health. So might as well you have to throw them out. So I have been saying this, when you're in doubt, throw it out. Mold growth. So basically, mold grow fairly even in too cold temperatures. And then the normal growth of these foods are in the room temperature, ranging from 25 degrees to 35 degrees. Okay. However, when it's too hot, basically molds will never grow. Okay, so we're done already with talking about the bacteria, about the yeast, about these molds. So we would know, basically we would, okay. So there's also another question, could be that why do frozen food become moldy? So I think you also, you have checked maybe sometimes when you open your refrigerators, you would know that why my fruits have molds when in fact, naman siya sa refrigerator. So basically, because there are some unfrozen waters left, so those creates the mold. So after hearing things, after hearing those bacteria, those deterioration and spoilage, I guess everybody knows, so why do we need to preserve food? Okay. Why is food preservation very important? Okay, that is not only for us, but also for our family. Food preservation, I would want everyone to understand that the basic or the underlying principle of food preservation is basically more on the preventing or delaying microbial decomposition and damage from mechanical causes, insects, and even the rodents. So these food preservation are very important for us, for our health as well, that we will not be contaminated, we will not have illnesses. That's why either we prevent them or we delay the microbial decomposition of the food. And what are the methods herein? Methods include the short-term method of food preservation and the long-term method. Basically, some people would think that food preservation talks about the bulad, about the jams, but no. Food preservation also has what we call as the short-term method, wherein it delays only the microbial spoilage of the food. And that short-term method includes blanching. Okay, blanching is very popular for veggies. Okay, mostly blanching can be done within 3 to 5 minutes depending on the type of vegetable. And because of this blanching, it is done to prevent cellular breakdown or the autolysis. Okay, just like for example, if we make mixed vegetables, okay, for example, the potatoes. So to prevent the browning of these potatoes, so it should have been better if we blanch them. So blanching is done from a boiling water, okay, that big bubbles appear. You drape these vegetables. After 3 minutes, you have to remove these vegetables and put them in ice water. Ice water for the purpose of stopping the cooking process para dili po siya malata. Another short-term method of food preservation is cooking. Cooking, simply cooking. Cooking is done in food to prevent autolysis and destroy some microbes. Okay. And long-term methods include drying, jamming, okay, canning, smoking, freezing, pickling, sugaring, drying, and salting. But all of these methods will definitely be explained well by Mrs. Bondad, our next speaker. So I am just showing you what are these examples of these food preservation methods. So before I end my report, let us again understand on what is really the significance of food preservation, especially nowadays that we are in pandemic. A lot of people are staying at homes. Since we're staying at homes, we would want to spend a lot of time cooking, what's innovating, and whatsoever. So basically, food preservation ensures more interesting and nutritionally adequate family meals. As you know, especially kids, we would want to eat variety of foods, right? So sometimes we would feel bored if the same foods have been eaten already. But because of food preservation, it ensures more interesting, okay? Another, it ensures a safer food intake. Yes, true enough, by cooking these foods. Food preservation also provides a means of livelihood. Yes, truly. A lot of people are now engaging in this, especially this pandemic, that many of us have lost jobs, or for some people, or in what is we need to survive. So because of food preservation, it can also be a means of livelihood. Food preservation ensures a more convenient way of making fruits and vegetables that are not in season available on the family dining table. So just like, for example, mangoes. As we know, if it's not in season, mangoes are very expensive. So why not grab the opportunity when they are in season? We can make mango jams. Okay, we can have dried mangoes as well. You know, dried mangoes are very, very expensive. So we can also have these strawberries, in which strawberries can only be available in Baguio, and we want to bring, if we want to bring strawberries here, that would take much time or whatsoever. Dali siya malata, so for example. So instead of looking for or waiting for that in season, so why not grab the opportunity when they're in season, do something, okay, which can also be which can be available for the family dining table. Preservation also prevents food wastage. Okay. So finally, before I would end my presentation about the food safety and food preservation, I would want to share to you one of the products of Cebu Normal University in terms of food waste reduction and of course food preservation. So this is only, I would show you one of the products of CNU, but the rest of the methods will definitely be explained by Mrs. Bondad later. So allow me to please share. Okay, we actually made this marmalade, or the watermelon rind pongkan marmalade. That is by yours truly and my advisee, Mrs. Vanessa B. Zavala from MSU IIT. So this marmalade actually has already been registered in IPOFIL, okay, as a utility model. So what is that marmalade? Actually, it is still like jams or jellies. However, it has the presence of the citrus peels. Okay. Again, it will be best explained by Mrs. Bondad later on. So I'll be showing you a glimpse of how we did it. Okay, so the preparation. Okay, let me share to you the preparation of how we prepare the watermelon rinds. So it's the rind. Okay, so basically the rinds, after we eat these watermelons, we basically throw them out because we see it as garbage. Dili naman siya makaon. But for us, with Miss Vanessa, we were able to think that maybe there's a possibility that we can still utilize these rinds rather than throwing it because it's garbage. So in order to reduce garbage, we utilize them. So that's the process. We collect and wash. We peel off the skin because skin is so kanang gahi. We slice the watermelon rinds into small cubes, boil them for 10 to 12 minutes, and we put it in a blender, the juicer to liquefy. After the watermelon rind, we prepare now the pongkan. Peeling or pongkan peels. Pongkan is a family of the orange. We wash them, we slice, we extract the juice. Okay, however, we need to remove the white thing or the pulp because that makes our actually marmalade very bitter. And we slice the peelings. So we need actually the peels of the citrus fruits as for the marmalade. And okay, another is here. So other ingredients would include the calamansi juice and of course the refined sugar. So how do we cook? We measure the required ingredients, mix them in a saucepan consistently. So while it's bubbling, we have to remove the bubbles. Okay, continuously mix until it reaches the jelly point. And we have this watermelon rind Poncan marmalade. Okay, so 104.5 degrees Celsius, that is how we know that it is already done. So we transfer them, make sure that the cans or the jars have been sterilized, and we cover it immediately. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. Sir Kim, are you there?
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Goles. Guys, please forgive me if I will not be opening my video. I have really bad internet connectivity today, you know. So, once again, thank you so much, Mrs. Charess Goles. Guys, I know for our participants, I know you have a lot of questions. Indeed, it was very informative. If you have questions, please just type them in the chat box, and we will be talking about them later. No, we will be answering your questions later. Just indicate the name of the speaker you want to address your question to. Now, we will be presenting our certificate of recognition to our first speaker, Mrs. Charess Goles. I'd like to ask Sir Max to show us. All right. So while Sir Max is setting up, congratulations, Mrs. Goles. That was very informative. You know, we learned a lot about why we need to preserve food, the different microorganisms that cause food spoilage.
Thank you, Sir Kim.
All right. Yeah, we still cannot see the certificate.
Sir, na-shared naman.
Na-shared na, nakita na. I think it's my internet connectivity. Anyway, the certificate reads Cebu Normal University, Tasmania Boulevard, Cebu City College of Teacher Education awards this certificate of recognition to Mrs. Charess E. Goles for being the resource speaker in the webinar entitled HEdConnect 7, Adapting Food Technology and Innovation in the New Normal on November 6, 2020 via Zoom online meetings. Signed by Dr. Ethel L. Abao, Dean of the College of Teacher Education, Dr. Daisy Polampon, Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Filomena Tidagil, SUC President 3. So let's give Mrs. Goles a virtual applause, please. And once again, thank you so much, Ma'am Charess.
Thank you very much.
So at this point, and without much ado, we'll proceed now to, yes, ma'am. So we will now proceed to our next speaker. This is the second part of the talk of Mrs. Goles. No? So her talk was on the theory side. This time will be on the application side. So to talk about food preservation, guide to food safety and food waste reduction, please welcome Mrs. Jannet Bondad.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Jannet.
Yes,
We can
ma'am.
hear
Thank
you.
you so much, Sir Kim, for that confirmation. So, most respected school administrators, the Dean for the College of Teacher Education, Dr. Ethel Abao, our Chair for the Vigilant Program, Dr. Wilson Ibanez, our special guest, Dr. Quiñones, my fellow teachers, guests, a bright and healthy morning to one and all. Have you started your day with a healthy morning routine? I hope you have started the day mindfully to have an energy throughout the rest of this webinar. And I thank you for your presence and your spending time this morning with our webinar. Today, we'll be looking at the following. So part one of my presentation will be about the food preservation ways and tips. Part two would be the virtual demonstration on sugar preservation. Let me take you first with this scenario. Imagine you have this fully grown big mango fruit in your backyard. What would you do with this big mango fruit given only one day to consume it? So if I'm going to answer my question, so since I am a mother of 3 bubbly daughters, so I'm gonna use this mango as an ingredient for a family's meal. So I'm gonna make it into a chicken mango recipe. So it's way healthier because we can get nutrients out of the mango and incorporating it into my dish. So since part of our meal would be taking desserts as to close our appetite, so I'm gonna make it into a mango cake. And since I am inclined to cooking and entrepreneurial skills, so I'm gonna make this into something or product to sell. So I'm gonna make mango float, I'm gonna make ice candy, and a mango pie. But the question is, how to keep the mango so I can still consume for the following days, months, and even a year. And so to prevent food wastage. Well, that to be taken up with the succeeding section of my presentation. Now, our meal priorities these days have changed due to long lockdowns. So food and food technology is vital to everyone's life. To sustain and get the adequate nutrients the body needs, that we consider that a good nutrition, it is our cornerstone investment, especially during this pandemic. So according to experts, there is a paradigm shift of taking or considering the meal priorities of every family, be either a snack, a one-dish meal, or desserts, and the like. So for instance, before the pandemic, consumers looked at snacks as a comfort food with a convenience purpose. So this, according to the food technology platform, as observed, the longer the lockdowns, the consumer preferences towards meal have changed. So though we still continue with the usual meal, we are more conscious about the foods we are eating or with our diet and are shifting towards a healthy and safer foods. So the next presentation will be a guide to the ways and tips to help you choose what's best for you and your family with safe and healthy goals. And also can be used for the students and the teachers for their cooking performances. In preserving food, we will take into consideration that no food preservation method improves the quality of food. But should you wish or you desire to have high quality preserved food, just like this picture, so you should also consider equally high quality produce, considering its freshness and the optimum stage of maturity. So let me lead in the ways and tips for preserving food the right and acceptable way. So these are the economical and the simple ways to prepare at home or even at school. To mention are the following. We have freezing, we have salting, and also involves drying. And this picture, example, a dried mango, so that is, it involves drying. And we have sugar preservation, and also includes canning. And we have also fermenting, and fermenting also involves canning. And we have curing. So all methods of preservation is based on the underlying principle of preventing or delaying the microbial decomposition and damage from mechanical causes, insects, and rodents. And that is as explained by Mrs. Goles a while ago. So the succeeding presentation, my talk, will be more on the various methods with the emphasis on nutrition, the proper storage, and even the extra considerations in preparing the methods. So let's start with these tips in preparing vegetables. So many vegetables can be blanched by dipping in boiling water for approximately 5 minutes and then pickled and fermented. So according to Mrs. Goles, there is a different time for blanching for different types of vegetables. Another one is for fruits. It can be preserved by blanching and freezing, juicing, drying, frying, or preserved with sugar into jams and fruit preserves. So an example, very common, the root crops, the potato. So instead of buying the French fries in fast food chains, so why not make your own dried potato or fried potato? Another one is banana. So the banana, the most common is the banana chips. So let's start with freezing. So freezing is considered the most economical and most common way of preserving because it does not consider any other machines to do the freezing. So why freeze food? So why does it preserve the food in freezing? In freezing, it converts a large percentage of the water content of the food to solid state, which turns into ice and makes it unavailable to microorganisms, as explained by Mrs. Goles. So here we can see the chart for freezer storage of the different various types of food. We have for fruits and vegetables the approximate number of months at a 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is for fruits and vegetables. It would range from 8 to 12 months. For poultry, it can be stored in the freezer for 6 to 9 months. While fish, 3 to 6 months. Ground meat, 3 to 4 months. And cured or processed meat, 1 to 2 months. So as you have observed, why does ground meat and cured or processed meat takes only a shorter period of time to be freezed? Because this ground meat, cured or processed meat have already been pre-processed or pre-prepared, and thus it is exposed with the favorable conditions, as what Mrs. Goles explained with the mnemonic term pattern. Nutrition of freezing. So with freezing, the foods are essentially maintained with its current nutrients, such as the vitamins and the enzymes. So, however, it should be freezed in a considerable period of time as long as they are high quality, because they will degrade over time in the freezer. So storage needs, so store only minimum amount of produce, so as indicated in the picture. So that is for the vegetables. So before freezing, you have to blanch the fruits or vegetables to prevent the deterioration or the enzymatic reaction. Thus, it increases the keeping quality. So as soon as the vegetables and fruits are harvested, it should be freezed to prevent further growth of contamination. And for meat, so you have also to consider a minimum amount as to what the family needs for the meal. So extra consideration in freezing. Before we proceed with the extra consideration, so let me show you first the tips and ways on how to blanch fruits and vegetables.
Are cool and serve them as crudités with dip, or store them in the refrigerator or freezer. To use in your favorite recipes later, gently reheat the veggies by sautéing, grilling, or boiling. Did you know? Famous vegetarians in history include Mark Twain, Albert Einstein, and Thomas Alva Edison.
So I hope you have learned on how to blanch or process the vegetables and fruits before freezing. So, as I mentioned earlier, let us take into consideration when freezing foods. So, let's consider tips for avoiding freezer burn. So, what is freezer burn? So, freezer burn, of course, when the frozen food has been damaged by dehydration and oxidation due to air reaching the food. So as you have seen here, this is what happened if food gets the freezer burn, pre-burned. So what are these tips? To remove items like meat, poultry, and fish from store packaging if not using right away. Or use freezer paper or a freezer bag instead. Make sure to squeeze air out of freezer bags. Then label everything you freeze with a name and date. Then let hot food cool down before freezing. So it is best to triple your bag, the food, when you freeze food items. Or you can have to squeeze out as much as possible. You squeeze out the water as much as possible. Okay, so these are the things we're going to consider when we do freezing. Now let's move on to salting and drying. So salting is the most commonly used on meat and fish, and I consider salting as a timely method of preserving food. While drying as well is considered as the oldest method, even in early days. With salting and drying, combination of salting and drying. Salting during ancestor times, they use salt as their preservative or to preserve foods. So drying, it is certainly one that a lot have used or been applying. Now, why salting? How does it preserve the food? Salt acts as the preservatives. So it preserves the food, or we use the rock salt or sodium chloride. So how does salting be done, or how does it preserve the food? Salt preserves food through removing the water content of food through the process called osmosis. So osmosis is the process by which a liquid process through a thin piece of solid substance or such diffusion through any membrane. And how it preserves, I will be showing you another video. This is very common. So I guess all of us likes or someone sometimes we like to eat this tuyo or bulad in dialect. So let me show you again another video to help you learn more on how this salting and drying being done.
Magandang araw po mga kababayan. Gagawa po tayo ngayon ng daing na isda. Ito po yung inasinan o salted fish. Siguraduhin po natin malinis na po ang ating isda. Hugasan po natin itong mabuti. Ayan po. Malinis na po ang ating isda. Pagkatapos po nating linisin mabuti ang isda, ito po ay umpisahan na po nating asinang mabuti. Siguraduhin na mayroon kayong lugar na malinis para sa pag-aasin ng isda. Ayoko po ng masyadong maalat. Marami pong paraan ng paggawa ng daing. Yung iba po binababad sa tubig na may asin, inuhugasan sa tubig may asin. Pero ang tradisyonal po talaga, ito po ay hinahalo sa asin o binuburo sa asin. Magdamag po minsan umaabot ng mahigit isang araw. Nasena na po natin mabuti ang ating isda. Dahil malamig nga po dito sa Finland, sa Pilipinas po, nilalagay po nila ito sa konkretong parang maliit na swimming pool. Doon po nilalagay ang bulto-bulto o marami pong isda na may asin. At hinahayaan pong masipsip ng isda ang asin ng maraming oras. Kung kayo po ay nasa malamig na bansa, nasa bahay, tag-ulan, ganito po ang gawin nyo. Ilagay nyo po sa supot ang inasin ng isda. Sa ganitong paraan, kakapit po ang alat sa isda. At isarado po ninyo gamit ang rubber band. Ang pag-aasin po ng isda ay nakakatulong para po matanggal ang tubig sa katawan po ng isda. Ito po isa sa pinakamabisang dahilan para po mas mabiling matuyo po ang daing. Ilalagay ko po ito sa loob ng refrigerator o frigidaire sa loob po ng 8 hanggang 12 oras. Kung kayo naman po ay nasa Pilipinas, maaari nyo na pong diretsong ibilad ang inasin ng isda. Siguraduhin po ninyo na maraming asin po ang isda para po hindi ito mabulok o amagin. Kapag ang isda ay nasa loob na po ng refrigerator, paminsan-minsan po ay ating baligtarin para po kumalat ang asin at kumapit sa isda. Pagkatapos po manggaling sa refrigerator ng overnight, siguro po 8 hanggang 10 oras, maaari niyo na po itong alisin, ihilera po sa parilya at patuluin ng bahagya. Kung kayo po ay nasa Pilipinas, maaari niyo na po itong ibilad ng buong araw para po matuyo. Depende po sa inyo kung gaano po katuyo ang gusto ninyo. Dahil po ako ay nasa Finland, papatuyuin ko po ito sa loob ng oven. Maganda po kayo ng baking tray na may baking sheet. Dito po natin patutuluin ang daing habang nasa loob po siya ng oven. Set po natin ang oven ng 50 degrees Celsius. Ito po ay tamang temperature para medyo mabilis po ang pagpapatuyo ng daing. Ilagay na po natin ang baking tray na may baking sheet sa loob ng oven. Sa ibabaw po ilagay po natin ang daing na nakaparilya. Maghintay lang po tayo ng 7 hanggang 10 oras bago po matuyo ang daing. Depende po sa oven ninyo, sa laki ng oven kung gaano po kabilis matuyo ang daing. Nakaraan na po ang magdamag. Bali, umabot po ito ng 10 oras. Nakikita niyo po, under 50 degrees Celsius pa rin siya. At makikita ninyo na tuyo na po ang ating daing. Alisin na po natin siya sa oven, palamigin, at ito po ay ating ibalot. Dito po sa Finland, dahil wala nga pong humidity sa loob ng bahay, maaari po itong amagin. Kung kayo po ay naninirahan sa malalamig na bansa, ito po ay inyong palamigin, ibalot at ilagay po sa freezer para po maiwasan ang amag. Kung kayo po ay nasa Pilipinas, syempre hindi nyo na po kailangan itong ilagay sa freezer dahil meron pong humidity. Kaya minsan, nagtataka tayo kapag nag-uuwi tayo ng mga daing galing sa Pilipinas at tayo ay nakatira sa malamig na bansa, inaamag ang ating daing dahil nga po wala pong humidity sa loob ng bahay. Maraming salamat po. Sana po ay nakatulong po ang video po nito sa paggawa po ng daing o tuyo. Magandang araw!
Okay, so I hope you have learned the process of preparing, salting, and drying with this tuyo or Bondad product. So how is then the process of salting preserve the food? So when food is salted or placed in a salt solution, its water content is drawn out, thus freezing the food of or reducing its moisture content. So with this condition, susceptibility to harmful microorganisms is lessened or totally eradicated. So let's move on to drying. So why drying? So drying removes or there is a reduction of moisture content through sun drying, air current, or artificial heat. So storage needs of drying. So we need a dark, cool, and dry, curritor-free environment. So we have to consider also for extra consideration for dried meats be stored in long term unless low fat and heavily sealed. So it needs to have a good ventilation to control humidity to prevent the growth of molds. So this is an example of drying in oven. So a while ago, I've shown you drying of the fish. Well, this one is an example of how we're going to dry fruits or vegetables. So we have to consider slices about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. So it should be within 8 to 11 hours. So drying in dehydrators, another way to slice for even slices, for even size and thickness until dry, hard, and crisp. So extra consideration. So you have to do citrus bath. So you're going just to mix lemon, lime, or pineapple juice with water. So that's in the ratio of 1:4. So bananas and apples should be soaked for 5 minutes in a citrus bath, shaken off, and then placed on a dehydrator trays. So drying in the sun. So drying in the sun, you are going to need screen, nylon, plastic sheeting. Foods can lose nutritional value or exposure to UV. And boats can be developed if moisture is not removed quickly enough. So it also should be protected from insects and animals. So let's move on to another preservation. We have sugar preservation. Why sugaring? So in sugaring, the water content is drawn out through the process called osmosis, and it makes the fruit resistant to microbial growth for some organisms. So sugar here acts as preservative. So in cooking, we have to consider, always start with sound, ripe fruit. Consider only small amount of quantities at a time, where it needs rapid boiling, so that the flavor and color of fruits are preserved. So I'm going to show you an example of sugar, sweet preserves made from sugar preservation. So we have jams, marmalades, butters, and jellies. So jams, how do we differentiate jams, marmalades, butters, and jellies? So jams, these are made from crushed or chopped fruits that is combined with sugar, cooked to a fairly smooth consistency, thick enough to spread. While the marmalades, these are soft jellies, usually containing thin, suspended pieces of citrus peel of the fruit. While butters and jellies are somewhat similar because they use fruit juices mixed with sugar and slowly to a thick consistency. So we have to consider in sugar preservation that the higher acid content, the less sugar is required. So it also varies to the degree of preferences of sugar intake. So variety of fruit, consider also the variety of fruit, the degree of ripeness, and the acid content. So therefore, sweet fruits with low acid requires less sugar, while sour fruit needs more sugar. So let us also be considerate that too much sugar destroys the natural flavor of the fruit. Now let's move on to the fermentation. So why does fermentation preserve the food? It converts fermentable carbohydrate sugar into 0.8 to 1.5% expressed as lactic acid. So in fermentation, so there is an aerobic oxidation of the carbohydrates that is resulting in the production of alcohol or acids of several kinds. This is an example. We have the wine, fermented wine, the cheese making. So that's an example of fermentation. So one way of applying fermentation is pickling. So by the way, in order for the fermentation to occur, so there is an addition of the salt. So because the salt is needed, and that the salt, the salt plays the important role in the inhibition of the growth of other organisms, which draws out juices through osmosis. So the pickling, it applies to any food that is preserved in a brine or vinegar. So the essential ingredients in pickling, we have fruits and vegetables, we have sugar, we have vinegar, and spices. So there are also different products that are made through fermentation. We have the pickles, or this is somewhat the cucumber preserved in a brine or vinegar, or you can use any the combination of vegetables. Then relishes may be associated with hot dogs and hamburgers, and excellent accompaniment to meat. So instead of Instead of using your favorite ketchup, so why not use these relishes to improve also the flavor of your hot dogs or any hamburgers. And we also have chutneys. Chutney is served as a condiment excellently complementing a wide range of food. So here is the storage needs of fermentation. It really needs a cold storage or refrigerator. The room temperature is not an option either. So you have to store it in a cold refrigerator. So let us watch this video on how to prepare this very simple pickle, green papaya pickle. To shred the papaya, place the shredded papaya in a large bowl, sprinkle over the salt, and mix again. So actually, you can also use a rock salt to have a more healthier way of preparing. So then you're going to squeeze tightly to get all the water out of it. So prepare the other vegetables. Have the carrots, the ginger. So by the way, in slicing, you have to ensure uniformity of slices and the thickness of the fruits. I mean the vegetables. So prepare the other. So there you go with the other ingredients. So you're going to mix them together: the vinegar, the sugar, the black pepper, the purple onion, and ginger in a pan. Then simmer it under low fire until the sugar dissolves. Just turn it into low fire, not medium or high heat. Then when the sugar dissolves, add in shredded carrots, bell pepper, and lastly the shredded papaya. Then prepare the jars. So the jars should be sterilized. Then transfer it to the sterilized jars. Then keep in an airtight container and in the refrigerator. So it should not be in the room temperature because it might be susceptible to microbial growth. There you go. You have your green papaya pickle. so those are just simple ways to prepare those things. So let's proceed with last preservation method. We have curing. So why curing? So curing is there's addition of salt, as the salt is considered as the key ingredient. So the salt here aims of drawing the moisture out of the food by the process called osmosis. So it also leads to prevent growth of microorganisms and low spoilage. Okay, so the essential ingredients in curing. So we have the salt, the nitrite, or dry powder, and sugar. So what is this nitrates? So nitrates, this is naturally occurring a form of potassium that is first discovered during Middle Ages. So and is given the name if you are familiar with saltpeter. So that's the term used, saltpeter. So when used for curing these nitrates, reacts with heat tissues that is to form the nitrite, or I mean the nitrate. So this nitrate, the question is is it harmful to our body? So nitrate makes blood vessels either wider. So because this keep the fat with the meat fresh, the nitrate keeps the fat with the meat fresh and prevent it from going rancid. So in fermentation or this curing, so there are various methods of curing or practice that is most common in India, such as dry cure, we call it as dry salting, pickle cure, we call it as wet salting, or there is a brine solution, a mixture of salt and water. And we have the injection cure, so that is most example in ham. Okay, so there's an example here. So dry cure, so this example for the dry cure is the tocino. So you can also have another food products made from curing. We have also your frozen Goles, we have longanisa, we have embutido. Okay, so those are examples under the curing method, a dry cure method. And another one is through injection, or there's what we call the solution. Okay, you're going to mix the solution and possibly inject into the flesh of the ham, or I mean the meat. So let us watch again on how to prepare this ham. This is a homemade ham.
Hi and welcome on CuisineEasy.tv. Today we're gonna see a recipe to do your homemade ham. So we're gonna need 1 kilo of ham fillet, a little carrot, the white of a leek, a branch of celery, 1 onion, 3 to 4 garlic cloves, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of dry basil, a little bunch of fresh parsley, a pinch of salt, and a pinch of black pepper. Simply put your ham fillet in 2.5 liters of boiling water, following by all the other ingredients. And let it boil for half an hour. In the meantime, we're gonna prepare a little mix that we will use to brush the ham later. In a bowl, we're gonna start by putting a teaspoon of honey, followed by a soup spoon of mandarin or orange juice, and a soup spoon of lemon juice, and then a soup spoon of Worcestershire sauce, and few drops of Tabasco. And simply mix everything and keep it for later. Your ham is not cooked. Take it out of the water. And put it on the grill of the oven and brush it with the mix that we've prepared before. And put it in your oven for 5–10 minutes at 200 degrees. And your ham is now ready. I know it doesn't have the great round shape like you would find in a shop, but believe me, it's gonna taste much better and it is much healthier for you. Let it cool down a little bit before to cut the string and enjoy it.
Okay, so that is...
Like you've seen on this video, doing homemade ham is not that hard, is it?
So that is how to prepare the ham for curing method. And the other way around, you can also have the injection cure, or we have the injection and the solution in which we are going to inject into the flesh of the ham, or the meat itself. So that is for curing. So at this moment, let me take you into my virtual demonstration, and I'm going to prepare a mango butter. So the mango butter, so I'm utilizing as well the fruit or the mango peel and the mango seeds in a way in making the mango juice. So let me take you into my virtual demonstration.
Hello, we're now going to start with our virtual demonstration. We're going to make good butter out of just one egg. We're just going to need mango and sugar.
So there you go. You're going to transfer the mixture in a pan. Then you bring to a boil for 2 to 3 minutes in medium heat. So after boiling, when boiling starts, you add sugar and stir continuously. Then continue stirring constantly. So continue stirring until thick in consistency. So the consistency must be thick enough to be poured. Then transfer into sterilized jar, allowing 1-inch headspace. There, so you are going to run a stainless spatula down the sides of the jar to remove air bubbles. Then seal completely. Cover with the lid tightly. Process in a hot water bath to kill bacteria that may be present after the long
And now we're done with our mango butter. So I hope you enjoyed with our virtual demonstration, and you too can make out of this very simple recipe and very simple ingredient.
There you go. It is best served with toast and any bread. Okay, so that ends with my virtual demonstration. So this is the recipe. So if you wish to prepare one. So before I will end my presentation, the bottom line here is when we preserve the foods, we are going to consider 2 factors. So the storage capabilities and the family space. So for the storage capabilities, of course, if you're considering a large scale, you should also have a big freezer storage. And family taste is that it would be wasteful if the family dislikes the taste, like the sour taste or even the texture. They don't like the dry texture. So the best arrived food preservation method varies depending on storage capabilities and, of course, personal preferences. So with that, so in food preservation, let us just remember, for food security, when in doubt, just throw it out. So with that, thank you. And that ends my presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Jannet Bondad. Let's give her a virtual round of applause, please. It's really very exciting, to see a demonstration of how these things are being done. Me personally, I am being taken back to my high school days when we were talking about these things, and I really miss it. All right, so at this point, we will be giving the certificate of recognition to our second speaker, Mrs. Jannet Bondad. So I'd like to request Sir Max. All right, so the certificate reads, Cebu Normal University, Ismenia Boulevard, Cebu City, Philippines. College of Teacher Education awards this certificate of recognition to Mrs. Jannet Bondad for being the resource speaker in the webinar entitled HEdConnect Session 7, Adapting Food Technology and Innovation in the New Normal on November 6, 2020 via Zoom online meeting, signed by Dr. Ethel Abao, Dr. Daisy Palopon, and Dr. Filomena Tideg-Bell. Let's give her another virtual applause. So once again, if you have questions, please type them in the chat box and we will be answering your questions later. So right now, we will proceed immediately to our last speaker, but definitely not least. I'm very excited for this talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to talk about food innovation and technology transfer. Please help me welcome Dr. Renissa Quiñones.
Can you hear me, Kim? Thank you, Kim.
Yes, Ma'am Ren. Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for your kind and generous introduction, Ma'am Dimna. To the dignitaries, faculty members, students, parents, food enthusiasts, my co-resource speakers, Ma'am Charess and Ma'am Jannet, and the participants of this webinar on adopting food technology and innovation in the new normal, good morning. Allow me to share ways of doing food innovation and technology transfer the way we do it in the university. We are not perfect, but we are doing our best. We work as a team, we connect, we collaborate, and we sustain. Today, I will be putting a discussion and sharing our practices in doing food innovation and technology transfer. I can speak in my own experiences. We might have varied experiences, but there are similarities that we do things. I am assigned to share the topic, food innovation and technology transfer. The academic way. I came across this quote from Brené Brown, and I quote, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change." This quote is particularly apt at present. During this pandemic, universities and food companies are really undertaking innovative efforts to continue functioning in some form, while accommodating restrictions imposed during and under the quarantine status. This presentation is outlined as follows. How innovation important? How others view innovation? What can be managed and changed? The IP rights, the technology transfer mechanism, and a lot more surprises during the presentation. Why innovation important? Innovation drives economic growth, and it has been acknowledged that innovation leads to wealth creation. Innovation makes a significant contribution to every university and the food industries. If you do not change what you offer the market will leave you behind. In short, survival is not compulsory. Universities and food businesses that survive and grow do so because they are capable of change. This change leads to a continuous meeting of consumer needs and therefore growth. Economists generally accepted the new ideas and innovation will generate a large proportions of nations' economic growth. Innovation is a strategic resource. It can help university, food businesses, and even as faculty member get to where we want to go. But it does not happen by accident. It can be a complex process that carries significant risks, enormous challenges, and it requires a robust and systematic management. Others view innovation. Innovation is a very broad term, and this means different things to different people. Let's try to discover three of the world's leading innovation experts share their definition of innovation. According to David Borkos, define innovation as the application of ideas that are novel and useful. According to NEC, innovation is turning an idea into a solution that adds value from a customer's perspective. While Kevin McParting, an expert in innovation management, according to him, innovation is the introduction of a new products and services that adds value to the organization. We can say, putting all these things, we can say that food innovation is the process of translating ideas into useful, new food products, processes, and services. It is exploiting the new ideas which lead to the creation of the new products, processes, and services. It is due to the beholder, but innovation from an industry's perspective is more than an idea because it is also the process used to develop the idea and the new product or the service that is recognized as new by our consumers. However, we can categorize innovation under 4 categories. The first is the new innovation. This is the real breakthrough that may be a product of manufacturing or application of a process that appears to the consumers to be true innovation. To have some example, it's a functional, an example of this is a functional, our functional foods. These functional foods are foods that provide health benefits and vital for disease prevention. So oatmeal is an example of a functional foods, which today we believe that it contains a fiber that lowers cholesterol, stabilizes our blood sugar, and even lowers our diabetes type 2. Pineapple also is a functional food because it contains phytochemicals that fight against cancers. And it also produces and support digestive health. The second category is a line extension to an existing product. This is a new version of the product within the same category. To give you an example, if your company is producing cupcakes, let's say vanilla cupcakes, and you will also be developing another flavor of cupcake, let's say chocolate cupcake, there is a line extension to an existing product. The third category is adaptation of an existing product. Typically, this can consist of developing a product or a process that is new to a category, but it is being recognized by the consumers. An example would be an adaptation of existing product is we have this cream cheesecake, and then we go into Oreo cream cheesecake. The fourth category of innovation is innovation imitations. These are imitation products which are superior to the original products, maybe in terms of quality of ingredients. The methods is being new. There will be a new packaging or a new name of the product. An example would be the very trending Obi Pandinsal during quarantine. So this is an example of innovation imitations. These products which you have discussed is, we have tried this during the quarantine and during the pandemic. We sell it and we have generate some income of it. But however, let's try to differentiate between invention versus innovation. While creativity is the act of turning the new and imaginative ideas into reality, then invention is the creation of a new idea or concept, while innovation is turning a new concept into a commercial product for a widespread use. So let's illustrate further, invention is the formulation of new ideas for products or processes. Over time, an invention may be improved. This improvement is called innovation. Innovation now is the practical application of the new inventions into a marketable products, processes, or services. So before, the devices we use in the kitchen are just crude, but because of innovations, our kitchen devices became more powerful, become more cheap, and become more high-tech. So innovations have really changed our daily lives dramatically. We have to take note that invention has a shelf life. It is only 20 years, while innovation has 5 years. So once you have succeeded and you have a successful product, keep improving it or keep inventing it. Otherwise, others will do it for you. These innovations and inventions would not be possible without the people behind the scene. For innovation to work, it must be supported by an organization which is capable of managing the process. An innovation is an organization composed of the food innovator, the innovation team, and a climate of innovation. The food innovator in an organization is the leader who drives and manages the innovation efforts. Acts as a spider in the web because he or she has to navigate throughout the entire wave of innovation, including the production, engineering, management, finance, administration, and quality. The innovator must also communicate with the people inside and outside the organization, which includes the suppliers, the customers, agencies, and other regulatory authorities. Today, we need more innovators than before. Universities and food industries are hiring competent innovators to join the team. The next in an organization is the innovation team. The team is a multifunctional group made up of key persons. They may invite consultants or external experts, but it is a group of people in the organization that will conduct the work and manages the process. It should be cross-functional, multidisciplinary, because it covers the areas of production, technical, marketing, finance, and sales. All these things need to have a climate of innovation. The business culture should encourage a free flow of ideas and support the development of these ideas, or else they will die on its natural death. Now here, participants, may I encourage you to join us our first pool question number 1. Please join us by typing your correct answer in the chat box. The first participant to write the correct answer will have some freebies and instruction will be given to you later. So this is a 30 seconds. Please answer this question. The question is, applying a new concept or idea into a marketable product, processes, or service that produces commercial value is A, innovation, B, invention. Timer starts now. 30 seconds. Please type your correct answer. Please type the letter of your correct answer in the chat box. Join us, participants. 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, participants. Now let's proceed. This presentation is a simplified cycle wherein you may follow this cycle, which we do it in our university. The first cycle is the idea creation or idea generation, or sometimes we call it, in short, ideation. The second is the implementation of the idea or during the conduct of the R&D. The next cycle is the IP protection, and the last, but not the least cycle, is the fourth technology cycle or the technology transfer cycle. So this is the cycle which we use and follow in the university. Very simplified, but along the way, there are a lot of things happened. So idea generation, the first step. Generating ideas for innovation can come from almost any sources. Do not discriminate ideas. Be happy to take ideas when they come. Without a flow of new ideas, there can be no innovation, regardless of how well we will manage it. However, there are several reliable and proven sources of ideas which the organization can rely upon to stimulate an ideas innovation. And this includes the use of creative tools and techniques. To generate ideas, we may use tools and techniques such as the conduct of a focus group discussion with our consumers, stakeholders, and even our employees. Do brainstorming with the innovation team. Another is the use of a market research. Market research using secondary research or field research. You can really generate a lot of ideas on it. Another way is customer feedbacking. Suppliers' input, employees' input, and don't also forget our stakeholders and even our competitors. They will really give us a blink or a click of innovation ideas. This list is not so exhausted. I know you can able to add more of it. But there are some of the organizations that idea generating is very difficult. But there are also others that there is always been a shortage of new ideas. But there are also other organizations wherein ideas is not a problem to them. But when you come across a new idea, it is just necessary to support or criticize an idea, but just give yourself the time to sit and ponder for a moment of that idea, that you might benefit on that idea soon. However, innovation does not end up into an idea generation because it is a process. Innovation is a process. It has to be managed, and it has 3 phases. The phases of innovation model, first is generate innovative possibilities. In this phase of innovation model, you will have to scan, we will have to search the environment, either internal and external, to pick up and process signals about potential innovations or potential ideas of innovation. This could be of different kinds. It could be arising from a research activities or from pressures of some to conform to food legislations or behaviors of our competitors. This will represent the stimuli to which the organization must respond. The second phase is select. Select strategically from these ideas or from these options. strategically choose from this set of potentials the triggers for innovation. Even the best resource universities and food businesses cannot do everything. So the challenge lies in selecting those that offer the best chance to develop a competitive edge. In this phase, you may use the different techniques such as brainstorming, focus group discussion, and teamwork. The third phase is implement. Implement and make the innovation happen. This is the R&D stage. Having selected the best option, the university or the food industry needs to grow from it through various stages of development. This is now the R&D implementation until we finally launch the product. Innovation can take many forms, but we can classify them into 4 dimensions. And simply we call it the 4 P's of innovation. The first P is product innovation. Product innovation changes in the products made. For example, in this slide, you can see a new product, the composition of a milkfish bone meal. It is being combined with a composite gluten flour blends in order to produce another product, which is a gluten-free calcium-enriched flour blends. Using these gluten-free calcium-enriched flour blends, we can use new ingredients. As a new ingredients, we can use different flavors, different varieties, and different products. So this slide projects an example of a product innovation. This is one of our products in the university. The second P is the process innovation. Changes in how the products are created and delivered. So for example, this slide shows how we innovate the process of producing milkfish bone meal. From the fresh fish, milkfish, to the removal of its spines until it becomes a new product. Actually, it's a byproduct of milkfish or bangos deboning. So during bangos deboning, spines are being thrown away. We will try to innovate something from that byproduct. So another product has been produced. Another example of a process innovation is before, when we do some banana chips, we use a deep frying technique. But now using process innovation, there are already banana chips using the vacuum frying techniques. The third P of innovation is position innovation. Changes in the context in which the products are introduced. For example, before we do our longanisa, chorizo, using a plastic. But today we can do some position innovation by packaging our longanisa, our processed meat, using the vacuum packaging machine. So this slide shows 2 ways of packaging. And now we are now having the new vacuum packed chicken sausage. The fourth P of innovation is paradigm innovation. Changes in the underlying mental models. Before, our distribution channel is face-to-face, but now still face-to-face but limited. We now use social media platforms. Now we have to be in a market-driven. Focus on what the market wants and needs. Follow on the market trends like social media, trade shows, exhibits, and market publications. So we now into social media. We do marketing using the new distribution channels, using the social media platforms. all this, there is an agency in our government that would help assist us. The DOST and the DTI, or the Department of Science and Technology and the Department of Trade and Industry, has established the food innovation and packaging equipment to assist us in our food innovation needs. These two agencies have developed, or DOST particularly, has developed a high-end food processing equipment like the water retort, the vacuum fryer, the spray dryer, and the freeze dryer. This food processing equipment can be locally fabricated by DOST accredited manufacturers and available at the Regional Food Innovation Center established in each region of the country. The Food Innovation Center serves as a hub for innovation, R&D, and other support services. Likewise, DTI also supports the establishment of Food Innovation Center and the Packaging Center. In our university, we have this Shared Service Facilities Packaging Center, which can be accessible for micro, small, and medium entrepreneurs, private industries, and any public individual who wants to use the facilities with a minimal fee. These are some of the examples of the product produced in the food innovation centers. Using those equipment, freeze-dried, vacuum-fried, spray-dried, and dehydrated products. Now, with the use of a freeze drying, we have developed a freeze-dried product that can be used for the production of food for those who will be into space exploration using freeze dryer. So they will bring with them the freeze-dried products during their space exploration. Let's have the second question, the second poll question. So please join us by answering or typing the letter of your correct answer. And the question is, social media as a platform for product marketing and distribution is an example of paradigm innovation. Letter A, false. Letter B, true. Time starts now. 30 seconds. Let's join us, participants. Of course, the first participant to send their correct answer will be recognized later. Five seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, participants. Now, we would like to share with you one of our video. And this is the pilot production of coconut water treated bottled mackerel in tomato sauce. This project is in partnership with the Technology Application and Promotion Institute, or the DOST TAPI. This is under the Invention-Based Enterprise Development, and it is being funded by DOST TAPI this year, 2020. Hey, Ujuman. Kina ay audio. Can you hear me?
Dok, wala, Dok. Dili mi kadungog.
Okay. Okay. For a while.
Kana, Dok, na.
Audio. Thank you. Thank you. The next step is the discussion and the IP protection or intellectual property protection. After you have created, invented, or innovated, the next step is to apply for intellectual property protection. The intellectual property rights includes patent or invention, utility model, trademark, copyrights and related rights, trade secrets, industrial design, layout design of integrated circuits, geographical indications. Why do we have to apply for intellectual? Because it really makes innovation possible. It is also wherein the innovators and the inventors are being recognized and rewarded because it provides incentive to their creative new technologies. Applying for protection is also help facilitate technology transfer or licensing. So any of those intellectual property rights you can apply as long which is more applicable to your product. You can apply one, two, or more of them, or all of them if it is applicable to your product. Let's try to have an example of a product having one or more than one rights, intellectual property rights protection. The Coca-Cola. For the Coca-Cola until now, the formulation is still a trade secret. And of course, the bottle design is under the industrial design protection. And the Coca-Cola trademark is being, the Coca-Cola as a trademark is being applied as a trademark. So still they are enforceable, one product having more than one intellectual property rights protection. Let's try to have our own product. The milk fish bone meal. Isai is the trademark of that product. The label is being applied for copyright protection, and the composition itself is being applied under the utility model. So we have one product having 3 intellectual property rights. The next step is the technology transfer. Republic Act number 10055, or otherwise known as the Philippine Technology Transfer Act of 2009. This is an act providing the framework and support system for the ownership, management, use, and commercialization of IP generated from R&D funded by the government. Since the implementation of this Philippine Technology Transfer Act of 2009, there is an increased interest of universities to pursue their entrepreneurship and commercialization intentions. The collaborations of universities and industries strengthens the convergence of a market-based expertise of firms and the scientific knowledge of universities in creating valuable technologies and innovations. There is now an increased engagement in technology transfer. And what is technology transfer? Universities are highly responsible for knowledge creation and technology development, making the university technology transfer a fundamental process in unleashing the economic potential of these innovative products, processes, or services. According to Kromar et al. In 2015, the technology transfer denotes the transmission of the newly acquired knowledge, products, or processes from one organization to another to gain benefits and competitiveness. It is also the process of moving the university innovations to a commercial setting for further development and transformation into products, jobs, and business enterprise. So from the owner, maker, innovator, or inventor through this technology includes product, processes, and services, and the receiver, or the technology adapter, or technology transferee. Technology transfer may be in a form of commercialization, meaning you can sell your technology outright, one-time payment, millionaire ang dating, or licensing. You can have exclusive licensing or non-exclusive licensing. Another form of technology transfer is for public good. The purpose of this is for community extension programs, training services, and pre-commercialization activities. You can also do technology transfer through publication of ISI, Scopus, and Web of Science journals, presentations in scientific fora, and also participation in market exhibits. Another form of technology transfer is spin-off, wherein a spin-off researcher employee may establish or may participate in a spin-off firm to pursue and commercialize the technology. Of course, the employee shall have to signify in writing her or his intent to create or participate in what we call the spin-off form. And he has to submit a business plan. An employee may opt to choose spin-off for 1 year, but renewable for another 1 year. So 2 years. You can do the full spin-off of your research. Next is the mechanism of technology transfer. The first is you have to identify who are the potential technology transferees or the adapters. What are the criteria to ensure that you have selected the best technology transferee? The criteria are: the transferee should have a legal personality or a track record. Second, they should have a financial capability to sustain the production, like they are a registered tax-paying company. The third is they should have a competitive position over other competitors, and they should comply with the legal, statutory, and business requirements. Another mechanism is the identification of the potential technologies. What technology or what intellectual property right that you have to transfer? So what are the conditions? First is there should be a proof of completion of the R&D project, that this project has generated this technology, meaning it undergoes the R&D development. The second is there should be the application or the acceptance of the technology for any intellectual property right, such as patent application, if the technology is patentable. So once you have submitted for the intellectual property application, then you can now transfer the technology. Of course, the next is it has to be, in the university, there is what we call the technology licensing officer, who always document and assess the technology and will recommend what modes of transfer is recommended for that certain technology. Technology transfer agreement should also include the following documents: the letter of intent from our potential technology transferee, stating that the company is interested to be an adapter of our intellectual property right of our technology. And then there will be a series of consultative meetings of both parties, the university, which is the owner of the intellectual property, and the technology transferee, or the potential receiver of the technology. Of course, another document that we have to prepare is the ocular inspection or the conduct of technology needs assessment of the company. If the company has this existing equipment that can be used during the technology transfer. And we also have to secure the fairness opinion report from the Fairness Opinion Board, which is being organized by the Department of Science and Technology. The Fairness Opinion Board will also recommend for the valuation of that technology and what is the value of that technology, how much the technology is cost, how much technology costs. And the last is there should be the execution of the agreement between both parties. Now, usually these things, these documents are being facilitated by the University Technology Licensing Officer. So, how do we determine if there is success in technology transfer? These are some of the indicators, but not limited to this only. We can say that technology transfer is successful if there is improved productivity, if there is increase of income, if there is product diversification, if it generates employment, and of course, if the technology generator or the makers receive their royalties. Of course, technology transfer success is possible through a collaborative efforts of different agencies, different actors involved in this endeavor. Accordingly, universities establish alliances, networks, and partnerships with external parties through collaboration modes, especially those agencies with resources of knowledge, skills, and offer financial grants and contracts, such as SUCs, private universities and colleges, government agencies, DOST, DTI, and others, private organizations, food industries, non-government organizations, among others. As we observed, that innovation is no longer centralized within the competencies of the university, but rather it's spanning its several actors, several chain actors with a collaborative effort. So, our next full question number 3. Be ready, participants, to type your answer in the chat box. The question is, how much is the royalty fee of a food innovator or inventor? Letter A, 3 to 6%. Letter B, 10 to 13%. 30 seconds. Time is up. Thank you, my dear participants. Winners or participants who have sent the first participant who have sent their correct answer will be given some freebies and instruction will be given later. Innovation and technology transfer in the university is very challenging and a very rewarding task. We share with you our practices on how we do it at the university, but all things make it possible when we work as a team. As I end the presentation, may I leave this quote from Bob Iger, and I quote, "The heart and soul of the company or the university is creativity and innovation." Bob Iger. The list of references we use. Thank you very much at maraming salamat po. But not yet. We would like to share with you another video on the process of producing pan de mackerel. Produced before our mackerel, and we try to use this as filling for our pan or bread. Man, is there any audio, sir? Kim?
Yes, Ma'am Ren.
Thank you. Next month.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Renissa Quiñones. That was a very informative talk. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Quiñones, please. Ma'am Ren, thank you so much, Ma'am. No, we're learning a lot in terms of yes, IP, technology transfer and all these stuffs. We admit we're still, taking baby steps in terms of these things, and you're already way ahead of us in terms of this one. So thank you so much for giving us such valuable information. And at this point, we will be presenting the certificate of recognition to our third speaker, Dr. Quiñones. The certificate reads Cebu Normal University, Osmeña Boulevard, Cebu City, College of Teacher Education presents this or awards the certificate of recognition to Dr. Renissa S. Quiñones for being the resource speaker in the webinar entitled HEdConnect Session 7, Adapting Food Technology and Innovation in the New Normal on November 6, 2020 via the Zoom online meeting, signed by Dr. Ethel L. Abao, Dean of the College of Teacher Education, Dr. Daisy R. Polumpon, Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Filomena Tideagbil, SUC President 3. Let's give her a big virtual applause. All right.
Sir Kim,
Yes, Ma'am Ren.
we would like to show first the winners of the poll
Oh, sure.
question.
Sige po,
Share
sige po.
screen. Okay. We would like to announce the winners of the winners for the poll question number 1. Congratulations to Luis Sironda. For question number 2, congratulations to Carlo Eradel. And for question number 3, congratulations to Luis Sironda. To claim your prize, send us a message at Facebook at the University Prod. Please screenshot this slide. Congratulations to all the winners, and congratulations also, my dear participants, for actively participating our session today.
All right. So congrats. Sige, thank you, Ma'am Ren. Congratulations to the winners, and thank you so much for giving prizes to your polls. So once again, dear participants, you may claim your prize by sending a message at University Prod. All right.
University Prod.
So right now we will be catering to your questions. So as promised earlier, no, I'll be reading your questions. Thank you so much for sending in your questions through our chat box as well as through private messages. So I have here 2 questions for Mrs. Goles so far. Let's begin with the first one. Ma'am Goles, paano po natin maiiwasan na hindi malason sa balanghoy, ma'am? Ano po ang proper handling po rito, lalo na marami na ang namatay dahil sa hindi mabuting pagkaluto nito? Ito ay isang tanong mula kay Ginang Cathy Canasa. So,
Salamat.
Ma'am Charess.
Okay, thank you for that question, Ginang Canasa. So I think we have heard it was very, very, how do I say, the one that happened in Bohol, katong maraming namatay because of the balanghoy. But basically for cassava or the balanghoy, cassava by nature actually has cyanide. But this cyanide is very volatile. That's why during the preparation, it indeed needs to be handled very well. So most likely, proper handling, we have the proper hygiene and the sanitation, and then make sure to remove the skin since the cyanide is present mostly in skin. And as they say in Philippines, in our case, the cyanide is much, since the balanghoy is much bitter, diri sa Cebu or sa Philippines. That is why we need to scrape off the skin properly. And of course, make sure to wash it thoroughly and be sure to use clean cutting bowls and tools. So that's how you prepare for the balanghoy. Okay, so, but actually, it's not necessary that you cook it right away, right after cutting, but you can still store them around most likely 3 to 4 months, but make sure it's in the freezer.
Right,
so,
is it just...
okay na ba yun, Ginang Canasa? Okay, Sir Kim? Oh, yeah. Thank you for that question.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Ginang Cathy. Actually, Ma'am Charess, may follow-up questions si Ma'am Cathy.
Okay.
Ang question niya is, ang sibuyas po ba ay kailangang ubusin kapag nahiwa na, kasi kapag hindi mag-cause daw ng cancer kung sa susunod mo pa siya iluluto? Ano pong masasabi niyo doon, Ms. Charess?
Actually, it's a myth. basically we've been eating onions, and somehow sometimes onions cannot be eaten right away or cooked right away. So far, nothing has happened. However, onions, remember the fatum that I mentioned. Onions has actually very low pH or the acidic level. That is why onions can never be a breeding ground for the bacteria cannot grow well in onions, and also because it has low protein. So bacteria does not necessarily go there. And onions also has antibacterial properties. So instead of us getting those bacteria and parang causing cancer, so it's the other way around. So it's actually a myth. It doesn't cause cancer. So you can still store onions, and then, but maybe the difference is the taste somehow compared to the freshly cut onions and then cooking it right away, compared na makastore siya with it or after a day, or cooking it right after a day, something like that. So that's only the difference. But when it comes to the cancer causing, I think it's really a myth. It's not real. It's not true at all. So thank you, Sir Kim.
All right. So now we know it's just a myth. Thank you so much, Ma'am Charess, for answering those questions. And thank you, Ma'am Kathy, for asking those questions on our behalf as well. No? So may comment dito si Ma'am Delia Tanoco from Mabiliana National High School. Please take note also, this is in relation with the first question. No? Please take note also that the cassava with cyanic acid needs to be neutralized with milk and eggs. Thank you very much, Ma'am, for that information. Now, I have here a question for Ma'am Jannet. No? Ma'am Jannet, the question is, in buying longanisa or tocino in wet market, not in grocery, is there a way that we can see physically if it's a good buy aside from the smell?
Thank you so much, Sir Kim. Actually, when we select foods that are in wet market, such as like this a processed food, it has way different when we buy from the fresh one from the processed one. So when we select a longanisa, so longanisa is a method of application of puree. So of course we're going to consider the different senses, so the sense of smell, the sense of touch, and sight. So aside from the sense of smell, so we are also considering the sense of sight. But as well, first and foremost, we are going to consider the packaging. So since this longanisa is processed, or after the process, it should be packed as well. So you're going to consider if it is sealed properly. So since the oxygen may speed up from spoilage, and then you should also have to check for the seal. The package that is not punctured, or that those have tears. So and maybe might as well, if you are not sure enough, so let us just to consider buying it from a reliable source, or you may have to prepare it your way, just like you are going to prepare it through our food preservation processes. In that way, we are ensuring that the food we are eating or preparing is in safe and healthy condition. I guess that would be all, Sir Kim.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma'am Jannet, no, for answering that question. Yeah, right. There's how do we say this? There's really truth to that, no? Yun sa ito ni pagsulti galing na Ma'am Charess, if there's any doubt, throw it out. Pero this time lang, kayo wala pa man mo na palit. So just don't buy it na lang. Buy it from a reliable source. Okay. All right. Our next question is addressed to Dr. Quiñones. Ma'am Ren, or hi, Dr. Quiñones. This is from Sir Jem Floyd Tanuka, no? The question goes like this. Hi, Dr. Quiñones, patents, utility models, as well as technology transfer utilization. Is it the role, or is it the sole responsibility of the innovator to find legitimate and reputable organizations to adopt his or her innovation? If it is otherwise, may we know how CTU helped their innovators find organizations to adopt their inventions or utility models for commercialization or utilization?
Thank you very much, Sir Jem, Tanokan. First, it is the innate responsibility of the technology licensing officer, or other university call it knowledge technology licensing officer. Okay, and then, however, as an innovator, I also have a full support and assistance for looking and for choosing a legitimate technology adapter. And aside from that, I also help the technology licensing officer in the preparation of the documents for licensing. On the other hand, I also assess the potential technology adapter to comply all the requirements, as well as to have to procure or to have all the equipment available in their company by helping them connect to another agency like DOST, who also share grants. They also have some programs and grants such as startup. We also help them in the preparation of the proposal so that they will also be given the grants for the purchase of the equipment which they will be using in the technology transfer. So all in all, the technology licensing officer, as an innovator and as the potential technology adapters, has to work as a team to succeed this venture.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Quiñones. I hope that answered your question, Sir Jem. All right, I have here one last question. If you have questions, just feel free to post them on our chat box. I have one last question, and this is addressed to Ma'am Jannet. The question is nitrate harmful? No, I read that it causes cancer. Is this true?
Okay, so thank you again, Sir Kim. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier about nitrate and nitrites and how does it's used in preserving food in way back with our lessons, and we are aware, we are informed that these nitrates are very detrimental for cancers. But actually, these nitrates are somewhat serve as a good preservative for making the the preserved food. So nitrate therefore makes the blood vessels wider. So that's why the recipe calls sa nitrate or nitrite, there has been a ban for this use in making bacon and ham because of their potential cancer effects, as what the question been raised. But the relationship between this one is a health more degree. There is certain degree that not only saying that they are bad for us, just like for example sa natural nitrate content. So it has natural nitrate content. I mentioned that it occurs in the form of potassium. It reacts only when there is meat, when the meat tissues is being exposed to this preservative. So this preservatives or the nitrate has been research based that it caused the lowering of blood pressure and enhancing the exercise performance. So again, it is an active ingredient. So not only it becomes the bad for us, but as well it also gives such an important factor in preserving the foods. But again, these are legal preservatives, so they are considered legal preservatives, no? When we add nitrates.
All right. Thank you so much, Mom Janet. No, I think what Mom Janet is saying that maybe it's also, us following the usual maxim when they say too much of everything is bad, or too much of anything is bad for that matter.
Yes,
Nitrates
exactly.
are, yes, nitrates are used as preservatives, but of course we just don't have to use a lot of them, or intake a lot of them, so to speak. All right, so I hope that answered the question of Ma'am Marites Lumokso. I have here one last question. This is addressed to Ma'am Charess. Ma'am Cha, since you talked about microbial spoilage, this could maybe lead to food infection and food intoxication. So how can we differ the two items or two terms?
Okay, Kim, uh, food infection, it is where the food has been infected, and food intoxication is when the person possibly eats the food that has been intoxicated, has been already infected. Okay, so say for example, a certain pork or meat, it has already been infected with certain bacteria, and that another person happens to eat that food with the bacteria already. So food intoxication already happens. Okay, and I think I've seen one another question. Yes, sir, Kim, can you do the honors, please?
Yes,
Sir JP.
Is using forks as an additional heat insulator okay in boiling meat and bones?
I'm not so very familiar. I'm not so sure with what Sir JP meant about the heat insulator, but forks are basically used, right, as to check whether the meat has already been cooked. Compared to the usual that we do, some of my students actually use knives to check the doneness of the meat, but actually it's wrong. So it should be the fork or the how do I say this one? But for the Sir Jiffy, what do you exactly mean by the additional heat insulator?
I think Ma'am Charess, Sir Jiffy meant an additional heat conductor. Like we use this in the house. Ako gani kanang kung maglatak bitaw mi. Butangan na to butangan na mo og kutsara or something metallic gihapon. Para ko no mas dali siyang malata. So is this a myth or
I'm not exactly sure if it, but I know that of course metals are conductors also of heat. But with regards to it boils more, right? So maybe Ma'am Quiñones can also answer the question, because I am not very sure whether it can make your soup boil faster. Ma'am Quiñones?
Ma'am Ren.
Yeah, Ma'am Ren.
Yes. Okay. Adding or using metals is a good conductor of heat. And then when you say the addition of fork, make sure that the fork should not be added during the service, because they might consume the fork, which is also hazardous.
That's true. That's true. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for that additional input, Ma'am Ren. No, I think I've read somewhere that there really is a scientific explanation to this one, because as we know, forks or spoons or kanang mga luwag nga kuan kay, of course they're conductors and they retain more heat, adding to the the process of pagpalata sa imong gipabukalan diha or something. So yeah, I think Sir Jiffy, it has some scientific explanation as to why we do that. All right. There's an additional question, a follow-up question for Ma'am Charess. What if wala mi temperature checker for food, or what? Is there any alternative ways that we can know that are in TDZ or not?
Okay, thank you again. Thank you, Kim. Most likely, TDZ, or the temperature danger zone, talks about the room temperature. So when food is exposed outside the refrigerators, or when they are not in cooking, when they are not cooked, basically they are in room temperatures. But once you put these foods in refrigerators, they are already from 5 degrees Celsius down. especially freezer that is already 0 degrees down Celsius. And if once you start applying heat to the food, thus it's most likely 60 degrees Celsius up. So basically, it talks about the room temperatures because danger zone talks about room temperature, just the ordinary room temperature that we have. That's 5 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. That is if in case you don't have a specific temperature checker or the thermometer. Okay.
All right, so thank you so much to our participants for asking those questions. You've been very interactive. And of course, thank you to our speakers. Let's give them another big round. Virtual applause. Murjug round ang applause to, but sige lang, you know what I mean, right? All right, so at this point, to synthesize the proceedings of our HEdConnect Session 7, Part 1, I'd like to call in a faculty member of the Integrated Laboratory School. Please help me welcome Mrs. Mary Jane Rieta. A virtual applause, please.
Okay, thank you, Sir Kim. Good morning. Of course, to our high respected to our dynamic Dean of College of Teacher Education, Dr. Ethel Abao, to our equally competent Chair of BTLED, Dr. Wilson Ibanez, and of course to our guest speaker, Dr. Quiñones, and to my colleagues, teaching profession, and students and friends. Good morning once again. I was actually reading on the comment section every time there is actually the speaker will be done or finished with their talk. A lot of you are giving comment of it was very, very informative. So I'm hoping that I could actually synthesize and give a proper recap to the three speakers. So let's start with Ma'am Goles. She started the talk talking about food technology defined as a science, a development, and an economic activity. She also emphasized that all the food actually comes from the living tissue, wherein it is basically or eventually through time, it will actually spoil. With this, food is also classified into perishable, semi-perishable, and non-perishable. Now, we always have to take note, as what she said, that the lower content, the lower water content of the food, the longer shelf lives. The higher water content, the shorter the shelf life. So there are two referral when it comes to this spoilage. We have autolysis and microbial spoilage. So when you talk about autolysis, this basically refers to self-destruction of food, so its own enzyme. When it comes to microbial spoilage, this actually already involve microorganism wherein we have bacteria, yeast, and molds. For the bacteria, she emphasized that bacteria grows best when it comes to FATOM. No? When we talk about FATOM, it means food, acid, temperature, time, oxygen, and moisture. She also emphasized about TBZ, which is a while ago. There was a question about that one, wherein bacteria grow in a room temperature. So if you don't have any, what do you call this one, checked or a temperature checker, we have that 5 degrees Celsius to 60, that eventually is the room temperature. If you go lower than that one, bacteria actually stay still but do not grow. But if you go higher temperature, it will actually die. So for the bacteria, there were actually a lot being said or being mentioned by Ma'am Goles. No? We have your Clostridium botulinum, Clostridium perfringent. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing it properly. We have the E. coli, Salmonella. We have Shigella, and we have Staphylococcus aureus. Both are actually infected by the food handler. Okay. Now, she also emphasized the prevention of food, illness, foodborne illness. Of course, we have the cleanliness, prevent cross-contamination, wearing of gloves. Food must be covered and stored properly. Water, make sure that you can actually, less water, actually, the one that keeps the spoilage of the food. Leftovers should be refrigerated, and frozen food should be cooked properly, or if not, put in free refrigerator. She'll talk about also for the yeast and the mold. Now, the yeast and the mold are also helping out in food production, but then again, it is also detrimental to food, food for spoilage. So food preservation, literally, it is preventing or delaying the microbial. So from the bacteria to the yeast to the mold, food preservation is being used. For this one here, we have actually the short term and the long term. No, for the short term, we have the blanching and the cooking, and of course, for the long term, we have your drying, canning, smoking, freezing, pickling, and so on and so forth. Now, she actually ended her talk in having this significance in food preservation, that we have to make sure that food preservation creates from interacting of me, creating of good meals. We also have safer food intake, provide meals for livelihood. Fruits and vegetables can be available to our table in any given time when we do food preservation. Prevents food from food wastage. And at the end, she was able to share the CNU product, which is the watermelon rind poncan marmalade. For the talk of Mrs. Bondad, she was able to emphasize that when we meet needs, our priorities before was actually more on the convenience, no, because everything is fast. But right now, since the pandemic, we are actually at home. We are more conscious already of the food that we are actually taking. So she also talked about food preservation, no, that you should be able to have two um, um, things to consider. We have the freshness and the optimum quality of your product. So the food preservation, she was able to talk about a lot of methods. She was also able to give some sample videos of the following. We have the freezing, the salting, the drying, the fermentation, the curing, and also later part, she was also able to give one sample or her own product, which is the butter mango, which is a sugar preservation. Next, we have the last one with the Dr. Quiñones. I was really into the talk. I was actually trying to write a lot of this, but I'm hoping again that I could actually give this one a proper recap. So with this one, innovation drives economic growth, leads to wealth creation. This is very true, no? With our situation right now. With this one, was able to she was able to talk about the four categories of innovation. We have the new innovation, a line extension to an existing product, adaptation to an existing product, and innovation imitation. She also defined that what's the difference between invention and innovation. For the invention, it is basically an formation of new idea or product. And for the innovation, it's practical application of new invention into marketable product. So for the shelf life of your invention, you have 20 years. And for the innovation, for 5 years. That's why she encouraged that you have to make sure that you keep on innovating your product. For the innovation organization, there are actually three. No, we have your food innovator, innovation team, and a climate of innovation. She also emphasized about the cycle, which most university actually follow when it comes to innovation. We have your idea creation, implementation, the IP protection, and of course the technology transfer. When we talk about your idea creation, literally it has different phases. We have generate, select, and implement. She also talked about 4 P's of innovation. We have your product innovation, process innovation, position innovation, and paradigm innovation. For the technology, for the food innovation and packaging equipment, she was able to share in CTU the different service facilities that actually help different small entrepreneurs, no, to use the different equipment in order to share their product to the community. She was also able to show sample products based or coming from the different equipment. And later on, she was able to share a video about one product or innovative product about mackerel. The next cycle is we have your IP protection. For the IP protection, there were a lot being mentioned here when you talk about this one. Example of this are patent, trademark, copyright, industrial design, geographical indication, geographical indication, your layout design, and your trade secret. So she also emphasized here that why do we do the IP, no, for protection? Because of course, for one, it is basically the sense of ownership to your product and to be given to the community. So sometimes there are also some product that you can actually have one product with different intellectual property right. So for the technological transfer, that's the last cycle, she was able to talk about the Republic Act number 10055, or in the Philippine Technology Transfer Act of 2009, that support this technology transfer. With this, she also emphasized that when you talk about technology transfer, it is from the owner, maker, or innovator, wherein the technology talks already about the process, the product, and the services to be forwarded to the receiver. So in the technology transfer, there are actually commercialization, public good, publication, and spin-off. So these are actually the what do you call this, fruit, no, of why do we do technology transfer. So for this, there's actually also a mechanism when you do technology transfer. We cited about the criteria of selection when it comes to your product, the identification of potential technologies or IPR for transfer, and then of course the technology transfer agreement. She also emphasized here that the service indicator, we have here the improved production, increase. How do you define, or how can you tell if your technology is actually a success? So you have here the improvement of your production, the increase of income, the product diversification, the employment or giving employment generating, and of course your royalty, or what you will be receiving once you will be able to have the technology transfer. She also talked about that right now a lot of partners that are actually willing, or partnership that are actually willing to go hand in hand with any innovator that can actually produce or innovate certain products. So a lot of SUCs are doing this one already. Private universities, of course, the government, no? The DOST and the DTI is one example of this one, and of course, private organization. She also emphasized that before, government see the innovator as their competition, but right now it's more of a collaborative work already to make sure that whatever product you can actually create can be shared by the community. So I think all of this has been very productive to our resource speakers or different speakers, that they were really able to share a lot of things and information that hopefully at the end of the day we can actually make our own innovation. So I think that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Sir Kim.
All right, thank you very much, Ma'am Mary Jane. No, indeed, that was another talk. Oy, thank you so much for the very comprehensive synthesis, Ma'am MJ. Congratulations for that. All right, so I'd like to let everybody know that this webinar is recorded and we will be uploading it in our YouTube account. You may just look it up on YouTube, Cebu Normal University Public Information Office, or the link is in the chat box right now. So once again, thank you very much, Ma'am Mary Jane Rieta. Indeed, this session of HEdConnect is very insightful and indeed informative. This only goes to show, or this only goes to prove that in this era called new normal, all fields of discipline has the capacity to adapt, survive, and thrive, even in this field of food technology education. And so congratulations once again to all our speakers. Thank you to our participants. At this point, I will now be encouraging everybody to open their videos because I will be, or Sir Cyril will be taking photos for documentation purposes. No, para sa makakita sa bis yung mga amaanyag o unsay Bisaya nang gwapo gani. Ambungan ng mga dagway. So checking. Oh, I have here 7 panels, so this might take quite some time. So just show us your widest smiles. Ready? Smile. Smile.
I am now in the third screen, Sir Kim.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Sai, for the update. We're now on the third panel. Okay, continue smiling, guys.
And then fifth. All right, almost done. Last one. All right, there you go. Thank you so much. It's done, Sir
All
Kim.
right, thank you very much, Sir Sai. And at this point, I will now be putting in the chat box the link to our evaluation. So please just click the link and do evaluate so that you will be able to receive your certificate of appreciation. And also, if I may add, please make sure to key in the correct email address or your correct email address, because the certificate will automatically be sent there.
Cebu Normal University, we hail your name with pride. To you we give our loyalty, your light to be our guide. Cebu Normal University, we hail your name with pride. To you we give our loyalty, your light will be our guide. Your nurtured dreams of crimson and gold, through generations we will uphold your might and fame. Throughout will reign, all sea and you all theme we sing. In glory, in adversity, with vision we move on. Cebu Normal, beloved university, Maranatha, carry
All right, so thank you so much once again, and congratulations to everybody, to all our speakers, the organizers. By the way, guys, in case you have problems receiving your certificate of participation, kindly just send a screenshot of your accomplished form to tanukancj@gmail.com. So once again, if you have problems receiving right after you send your evaluation form, you should receive your certificates maybe 30 seconds or a minute later. In case you still haven't received yours or your certificate after 15 minutes or an hour, please send a screenshot of your accomplished evaluation form to tanukancj@gmail.com. So once again, thank you so much to our participants. I'd like to say I'm very glad. No, we are still 157 strong, more or less. That's the number of participants we had since we started. So yeah, thank you so much for being there. And if you haven't already, kindly please register for the part 2 of HEdConnect 7. This will be on November 13, 2020, next Friday.